always happy to see that 3-2-1 work. And I'm going to say that good evening and good afternoon from New
York State.
New York, and good evening from Israel. Rose may join us tonight. We're not sure, but her heart and soul are here with us always. This is TMS Roundtable Global. My name is Dr. Tova Goldfein, and Rose and I are clinicians and therapists for 30 plus years working with pain, and we have been helping individuals recover and on their healing journey, and we are two blessed women. And so in this show weekly, our weekly broadcast, we continue to inspire and educate and bring you some amazing therapists and directors, movie directors and authors, and sometimes amazing doctors, and most of all, the most outstanding people who, like I say, are not Dalai Lamas on the mountain. They're just real people like you and I, healing and on their healing journey. And tonight we have Deborah Bliss. I like saying your name. They call her Deb. And her story is just leaves me speechless. So I think I'm going to hand this to you in a minute. I like the details. I want to get the details, and I want to know about the good and the bad days, the highs and the lows. I want to I want to continue to have our listeners understand this is a journey. And I think your story, Deb, has not been any kind of story. We have some amazing healing stories from Sarno, Saved by Sarno, but tell us from the beginning. So, when did you first start to notice you were having some pain? Like, let's just start there and then fill in all the blanks about what you're doing and how you've been healing. Welcome.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me here. I've had TMS symptoms for more than 20 years, but of course, never recognized them as such. And I don't want to spend a lot of time, but things like allergies.
I want you to spend as much time as you want.
We'll be here all night. You won't.
I don't care.
Okay. Well, how about this? In my 50s, I became severely allergic to cats and dogs, which I had never been before in my life.
Interesting.
And thought, oh, okay, this happens in your 50s. And 25 years later, I learned about TMS, and I think, well, what was happening then? My daughter was getting married. She was moving across country. We were doing the wedding here. We were doing the cooking and the music. And of course, so allergies. And I had back pain on and off. I also, some of it severe, but we won't. It was on and off.
So when you had back pain on and off, you went to doctors saying, "What's wrong with me?"
Yes, but there was something wrong. The back pain that I had on and off completely went away when I started doing strength workouts.
Okay.
Because I had no muscular strength to support my spine.
Okay, so that was the answer to your back pain.
That was the answer to my back pain.
Okay.
Okay, so when I was 62, I got involved in sports. I had never done competitive sports at all, and I fell in love with triathlon.
And I fell in love with triathlon. Go ahead.
I fell in love with it. It was exciting. I watched my son-in-law do one, and I said, "Oh." And also, I learned you could do them as a relay. So my daughters were two daughters were grown, living far away, and I thought, "Oh, we'll do a relay. One can do the swim, one can do the run, and I'll do the bike."
Oh, so I mean, the three of you would do this same.
One did each leg. The triathlon has a swim leg, a bike leg, and a run leg.
Amazing.
So the daughters, and it was a couple of years before they could come, but they came and we did it. And I was just in love with the whole thing. I said, I can do this whole thing.
Wow.
So that's when I started. I wasn't a runner. I didn't even have a bike, and I didn't really know how to swim.
So at 62, you were not having any chronic pain?
Oh, yes, I was. I had a knee that had bothered me for 10 years. And I did go to, I went to a doctor who said, oh, well, you shouldn't run if your knee hurts. You'll end up replacing it. And I said, I need a different doctor. I'll never ever go to another doctor that's not an athlete. So I went to a different doctor, did some physiotherapy, and the knee pain went away. So,
so you would respond to medicine. You'd respond to those things in the beginning of your pain, but they would come and go, but it was not stopping you. And then at 62, you began to do sports.
Right.
Okay.
And athlete, you will get injuries if you run. You will get overuse injuries. If you don't ever overuse your muscles, you're not using them enough. So, but I would get them one after another. I was in physiotherapy continually. And they would make me panic, thinking, I'm too old for this. I can't work out. And so
people say things to you?
I would just be, well, that's common knowledge, common knowledge. If something hurts,
stop.
Don't use it. Stop, right? Whereas now, so I'll skip ahead in time. Now, if something happens, I'll mention this morning, I did some exercises. They were vigorous, and my knee went, oh, ouch. In the past, I would have said, oh, fear. Oh, no, my knees are bad. I'm too old for this. I have to take a week off. I said, no, it's TMS. If it's not TMS, it'll go away it'll go away.
So you responded. I want to make a point of that. Yeah. You responded, and then maybe tell us when maybe you reacted, and then what happened.
Oh, and it was gone by lunchtime.
But tell me when in the past, obviously you reacted to some of your pain, and it got chronic.
Yes, it did. And all right. So we'll jump to the bigger. We'll jump to the bigger pain. Last fall, I was walking in with canes last fall. I could not work
because of your knees. We're told because of your knees.
No, because of my hip. Wow. Because of my left hip. And I was frightened because 2 years prior to that, I'd had a pelvic stress fracture. And although the doctor couldn't see how that could cause hip pain, it caused similar hip pain. Okay. So intense. Again, I needed a cane or a walker. So I was very frightened, went to the doctor when, acupuncture, doctor did all the imaging and he couldn't find anything.
And at this point, you're 60, you're in your 60s.
No, at this point last year, I'm 75.
Oh, and you're 75.
I'm 75.
I want to say that you're 75.
I'm 75. I had just completed a 70-mile triathlon. And,
oh my God.
And,
amazing.
And had a very intense training year. And, well, I don't know. I'm getting off. That's
track. Okay. No, you're good. Go ahead.
All right. We'll stay on that track. And the day after that long triathlon, and I had great pain before that. I got out of bed. I was using the cane. I'd had a lot of hip pain. I did the triathlon anyway.
You had hip pain. You did a triathlon, and no doctor would have told you to do it. In fact, they were against it. And what happened at the end of the triathlon?
Well, the doctor I had seen the doctor, and he gave me a shot, a cortisone shot. No, he had said, if rest doesn't heal it, come back, I'll give you a cortisone shot. And rest did not heal it, but I didn't have time to go back. And
so you did the triathlon.
I did this race, despite the pain, which only hurt when I ran. And then the pain was gone after the race. I drove home from
You were hurting during, how many miles were you running?
13.1.
And you were hurting the whole time?
I only hurt for the first 3 or 4 miles.
Okay, were you
in my hip.
scared? You weren't
Wait,
just go
but
ahead.
wait, then after that, everything hurt.
Okay.
So,
But weren't
so
you scared? You were hurting your hip. Weren't you having weren't you like talking to you? Weren't you like pissed at your hip? Weren't like what was going on when you were running with hip pain?
I was saying, well, maybe I can make it a mile.
Okay.
Maybe I can make it the next mile.
So the
Oh,
pain, but the pain used to scare you, but it wasn't scaring you that like at what point was the pain scaring you and then it stopped scaring you?
Well, it scared me, but I was very motivated because I wanted to qualify for the world championship.
Okay,
And I
so
had to do
your
it.
goal of wanting to qualify for the world championship, when it like was your fear, like I'm talking about, because people when they have pain they stop because it's scary. What did you learn? What in your field, what in your studies or with the work you did taught you that it's brain pain and that you can trust your body and that whatever happened, even if something happened, you were going to be able to handle it? What gave you that confidence?
It's just cussed stubbornness. I cussed stubbornness. I had the ambition to go to a world championship, to do well at it. And I'd already qualified for one world championship, but I wouldn't go there because it's in Abu Dhabi and I wouldn't go there. So this was my last chance. And, by God, I was a champion.
Okay, so I'm speechless, but I'm just getting the facts here.
This is how athletes think.
Right, but let me hear you. Let me say something. You ended this race and everything hurt. And then what?
And then I was tired, but things didn't hurt anymore. And then I drove back from New Jersey with no pain.
And then
And then the very day I got home, I got a phone call from my brother who has Alzheimer's, who I take care of. He doesn't live with me. And he was in incredible pain. He needed to go to the ER.
Okay.
And I mean, I had just driven from New Jersey. I hadn't even unpacked the car. So I did that. And I spent 6 hours with him in the ER. He was completely delirious. He was unable to stand up. He fell when he was getting into my car. And all of a sudden, I became a caretaker. I mean, all of a sudden, for an individual, he's my brother, but, we're not close. But now I was responsible for him. And he was completely incapacitated.
And how did your body react to that?
The next day, I couldn't get out of bed with that hip. I could not get out of bed. I couldn't roll over in bed. But I had to, there were things I had to do, but I had a cane and even a walker.
So you were in pain and you're living with the pain. And what would you say to the pain? Would you ignore it? Would you distract yourself? Would you talk to it? Like what? I'd like to know what you were doing throughout that day with that pain. You had the cane, so you obviously took some support. But what helped you live and accept and be with this pain?
Well, there were things I had to do.
Okay.
There were things I had to do.
So you had a greater goal of getting things done.
I had to, I'm very, conscientious. And I had to do this. And I was caring for my daughter's dog, babysitting for the dog, who himself had a leg injury, and he needed...
We don't care about the dog, Deb.
No, you do care about the dog. He needed to be walked 5 times a day for 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh my God.
And she was in Africa. So that was something I had.
Plus your brother and the dog.
Plus my brother, plus the dog, plus the fear of a repeat pelvic stress fracture.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I had, before this so-called pelvic stress fracture, I had actually broken my hip, same hip, in a cycling crash.
Wow.
And in the x-ray, the doctor had found some necrosis of that hip.
Right.
So in that fear is also,
Right.
oh my God, do I need a hip replacement? So I was
Yeah.
in a state, and it was a state of complete breakdown, complete emotional breakdown, depression.
But this was with the dog and your brother, you broke down.
Yes, I did what I had to do, but I was in a totally horrible state of mind. I actually was taking pain medication,
Okay.
And had not heard of Dr. Sarno, and was very miserable, was looking for other answers.
This was the pre-Sarno days when you were exercising a bit.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was examining, and I thought that maybe my triathlon had contributed to this, and did I want to continue doing this? And somewhere down in that hole, I decided, yes, I really do want to continue because it brings me joy.
Wow.
So I made myself continue walking as much as I could. And sometimes
Was the pain medication giving you relief?
Yes, when I took it. I wasn't taking it every day, but and I was doing acupuncture, I was doing saunas, I was doing massage, I was doing chiropractic, everything, looking for relief.
So what point did the Sarno, like, what was your first experience of the Sarno work? Like,
Well, so 6 months into that, in March, I just coincidentally read an article in the New York Times by a guy about Sarno's book. I said, that sounds like me. Because by then I knew there was no physical cause. I got the book. I read.
Wait a minute. Well, and I'm going to stop you. Wait a minute. You have necrosis and you have the hip, but you sort of understood that doesn't always mean chronic pain.
When I read the book, yeah, but the necrosis, the doctor said, so my doc sent me to a surgeon. He'd come out all sharpening his scalpels, ready to replace a hip. And he looks and he says, oh, it's not that bad.
Okay.
So yeah, you got a little necrosis.
Okay. Okay, good. So go ahead. So you're reading the book and you're like,
so I'm reading the book. And then I also understood that the thing that caused me pain, in addition to walking, was rolling over in bed. And I was rolling over in bed, and I flashed back to when I was in the hospital after breaking my hip and being in great pain, rolling over in bed. And I said, well, this is just mimicking that pain. This is what Sarno's talking about.
Right.
And
trauma of the pain in the hospital.
The neural pathways. And maybe by then I was reading Dr. Schubiner or Dr. Hanscom, because I read and read. The neural pathways developed from this legitimate injury.
Neurons that fire together, wire together.
Yes. And that's what was causing it. And what happened was I got worse. I had been walking, even running a little bit, running 10 seconds at a time, building myself up. And
you got worse. Well, then
I got worse after reading Sarno's. After
that happens a lot.
Yes, it happens a lot. And so for 6 weeks, I could not even walk with it. I could not even run at all with a cane. I could only.
How did you you might have thought that this Sarno stuff is BS. I'm not going to.
No, I just kept reading. I knew it was true, and I just kept. And I did all the other things, the TMS wiki with Alan Gordon, and by then I was doing the psychotherapy with, in association with Dr. Schubiner's online course, and so I knew and they all said, oh yeah, extinction burst, and I said, okay, I can wait it out, and I did what I could do. If I couldn't run,
so you were in pain. You were journaling, you were meditating, you were reading. What else were you doing that seemed to give you hope? What else were you doing? What other tools or insights were really helping you personally?
Well, through the psychotherapy and and also that course, which was co-taught by Hal Greenham. And Hal Greenham showed me this technique. Well, in the psychotherapy, she helped me connect with my inner child. I had never been exposed to that. And Hal Greenham taught a method of writing with your non-dominant hand.
Oh, I've heard about that. Writing with your wow.
And I have conversations. I do that to this day.
Can you tell us about that? So you're journaling or you're just writing?
So let's say this, all right? Let's say this the other night. I was very anxious. I was signing up for this world competition in 2023, and my anxiety was high. And so and when that happens, I can't sleep. And what I do is I take out a pencil and paper, and I started writing about all my feelings, all the anxious, my imposter syndrome and, all the rest of that. And then I invite my inner child, my little Debbie, in. And I say, well, what's your take on this? And I put the pencil in my left hand. I'm right-handed. And she says, money. It's expensive.
Were you writing this with your non-dominant hand?
I was writing this with my left hand. Mommy hated spending money. And I thought, I knew that, of course. She was a child of the Depression. She was very anxious. My mother was a very anxious woman. And this race is very, I was signing up, spending money. Mm-hmm. And so I chatted some more with my inner child. And we, it's great. I've become quite friendly with her. And sometimes, there are affirmations that we repeat to each other. Sure. Sometimes, where she might say, I'm healthy and strong, and I might answer back, I am capable and worthy.
Right.
But
so I'm going to interrupt you again. So okay. You learned that writing as much as you can with your non-dominant hand. This is like this one brain work. I'm going to do some research and post something about it because I've heard it before. Somehow it helped you to integrate with your little child, or to explain it again. Explain it, please.
Well, she knows things and remembers things that are way at the bottom of my memory.
And that non-dominant hand will allow you to access that?
Yes. That accesses that.
Wow.
And also I can, my early conversations with her were more about her being safe and her being loved. And in certain ways, she didn't feel loved. In certain she did not feel validated at all, except by achievement.
Wow.
And yes. And so, number one, I learned that about her, which is me. And number two, I reassured her, that just how lovable she was. And I love her, mm-hmm. which is just kind of a great way of giving yourself self-love.
But it's not easy for people, Deb. It's not easy for people to access their little child and feel love. How did it go for you? Like, how did that unearth? How did you unearth that?
One thing I did was I have an a book of old pictures that I saved when my parents passed away. And I went into that book and I took out 3 pictures of little Debbie, and I framed them up, and I put them where I could see them, so I can talk to her. And she actually. Go ahead.
I'm sorry I'm interrupting. People sometimes get upset when I interrupt, but it's sort of this anxious habit because I want to just ask some questions to help some people. So I want to help some people understand what would you say to the people who aren't able to access their little child so easily? Like, what would you say?
Well, when Hal Greenham he started doing this in that program that I took, and he said, close your eyes, deep, breathe deep, get a relaxed, and then just picture scenes from your childhood. And he would give some for examples and so on and so forth. And one thing I learned then was that I really didn't have very many happy ones. But anyway, I pictured, so I would draw up, with his encouragement, draw up a visualization of
Beautiful.
myself around the family table and playing with my brothers and so on, as well as I could remember. And then he said, now pick up that pencil in your non-dominant hand. No, first in your dominant hand and say, just like you'd say to a friend, how are you doing?
Wonderful.
What do you feel right now? What do you feel? And
Wonderful.
take the pencil in the other hand and answer. And well, it's like any friendship. It might be awkward in the beginning, but
Yeah.
if you're open, and if you don't mind feeling silly, because you're going to ball the whole thing up and throw it away. So, and the other
Did
thing
you did you throw your journaling away?
oh yeah, I throw it away immediately.
Wow.
And the other thing is she doesn't. I don't write legibly with my left hand at all. But
Of course not. Yeah.
yeah, but that's irrelevant.
Wow.
So this is a powerful. I still do this, and every, I don't sit down to journal at such and such o'clock every day, but when I feel something come up, I first do a little meditation, a little breathing, and then I start writing. And if I still feel emotional, or if I feel little Debbie might have something to say, I just bring her into the conversation. And the other thing that I write down is, okay, so I'm feeling angry. Where in my body am I feeling that? Oh, it's a tightness in my stomach. Oh, it's burning in my shoulders.
Wow.
And so I write that down, because that's just an important part of it. And
Wow, amazing.
so it's kind of free flowing. And the other thing I do, this is really jumping ahead, but you and I have talked about Dr. Fred Luskin's work,
Yes.
forgiveness.
Please bring the book up. Please show the book. This is amazing. Wow. Forgive for Good. And this book, and Fred Luskin is in the movie Love Heals, because he was interviewed, because he's actually a good friend of Dr. David Hanscom. Dr. David Hanscom recommends Forgive for Good in the movie, in his work, in Hanscom's work, as one of his resources. And then he was in the movie Love Heals because it was such an important part of the science of love healing, to forgive. So I'd love to chat about that. That's really, so who did you have to forgive, Deb?
Well, mostly myself. That, there are other people that have to forgive. And it was either he or Dr. Hanscom that says, if you have an emotional response to something, that means, if you have like a little grievance response, there's more forgiveness work to do.
Right. And there's an attachment that's an unhealthy attachment, I would call it.
Yeah, to your grievance, to your own
Right.
grievance.
Like if you're angry or not forgiving, you're connected to that, and it's going to bring you down.
Yeah, I had another experience last fall. On the top of everything else that happened, I also had a pretty vigorous disagreement with the National Triathlon Organization.
Wow.
Which was subsequently resolved. So I thought, and then in connection with the race this year, there was a very neutral webinar with information that athletes needed to know, and I found myself steaming. and nothing they were saying was like, it's like where you got to fly to and all the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very funny. The next morning, my back was hurting. I didn't connect it with that phone call. I just thought,
Mm-hmm.
I'll live with it. And then the next morning was still hurting. I said, well, what's been going on? And then I remembered that webinar. I had just read it. It was not in, I don't think it was in this book. I wasn't here yet. It was in Dr. Hanscom's. If you have an emotional grievance come up for no reason, you've got an old grievance and deal with it. And I thought, well, yeah, this thing from last fall that I thought had been settled had not been. And I guess I got to work more on this forgiveness thing. And the back pain immediately went away.
Wow.
Now, it came back. I hadn't finished reading this and what I love about this book is it's like if you can follow a recipe, if you can follow a pancake recipe, you can do this. And you can find peace of mind.
I wish it could be so easy for some people. And yet I want to just go back to when you were helping your brother and your daughter's cats or dogs.
Yeah.
The dog. I've met a lot of people who, when they were helping others or volunteering or giving of themselves in a way, their pain went away. And it's kind of like, they looked at that like, why can't I do that on my own? So why can't people? So there was something happen when you were giving that helped you with your pain. And this other people that I know, but that you were able to also look at that situation. Well, if my pain can go away by helping them, then because some people's pain gets worse.
Right.
So it can go either way. But
mine regarding my brother, it was when I came to understand later, it was a severe trigger. The last time I was in a caregiving situation was my husband had an automobile accident. It was almost 20 years ago. Yeah. And he was in bed for 6 months.
Wow.
And caretaking was a full-time job. Plus, we had a business, and that was that full-time. It was the most stressful time of my life. So having to care for my brother triggered that whole caretaking thing. And also,
so you were worse taking care of them and the dog. You were worse, right? Taking care of your brother.
Oh yeah, the thing with if that hadn't happened with my brother, I don't think that I would have fallen into this because I was recovering from the race.
Right, and then that after that it got you into the Sarno work.
Yes. The other thing that it triggered is, at 75, you're getting closer to being old.
What are you talking about?
And
what are you talking about?
No. I mean, so many of my peers are either dying or falling into dementia. And this was one of my unenforceable rules, which is another thing. I hope we have time to talk about unenforceable rules, but
that's a statement. That's Fred Luskin. He talks about unenforceable rules, right?
Unenforceable rules.
Go ahead. Let's talk. Let's hear one.
Will lead to trouble. Unenforceable rules lead you to grievances.
If we have unenforceable rules.
Yes. An unenforceable rule. It might have to do with another person, such as husbands shall put their laundry away. That is an unenforceable.
Like if you have a rule, like if you're restricting and you're stuck and you're like black or white, that's going to lead to problems. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, right. You can't enforce it. You can't enforce it. You can go crazy trying to enforce it. Well, the unenforceable rule, where am I? Is that was and I just realized another one. and I just understood something. I just had an epiphany.
Go ahead. We're live. Say it.
Your inner child can have an unenforceable rule. And my inner child's unenforceable, it was one of hers that other people shall care for me. I don't have to take care of other people. And I knew from the work that I had been doing with that course that my inner child was angry at having to care for somebody else, but I just made the connection between it being an unenforceable rule.
Wow.
Well, you can have an unenforceable rule about your husband, your child, whatever. You can also have one about life in general, such as age isn't going to affect me.
Right.
And then you get triggered when you see people around, your dear friends are passing away, falling into Alzheimer's, your brother, my other brother was dying at the time. So, but you can apply his same recipe, his same pancake recipe, to not stuff that, not make that go away, but to understand I don't want to go through all the steps because I really want people to read the book.
And show the book again.
And I won't be able to do them justice.
Oh, but let's go back to the mortality, because you were talking about that, and a lot of us are, in our 50s and 60s and getting into this chronic pain, and being stuck and being black and white and not being able to be in that gray area, and you were able to move to that area. But go ahead, talk about the mortality, because you brought it up a few times.
Well, I don't know if I want to get into I could, but
let me I'll ask you a question. Does it scare you that you're facing your mortality, and how
No.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
Not at all. Not at all. There are
other things that scare you, not that.
No. Whatever. It's not like that. All right. So it's the end of these limitations, that to pass into the next world is to be born into a world, into a glorious existence with no limitations and joy, and where all the people who have or who will go there, you'll be joined.
But there's a job in this life, that to live with yourself and to accept yourself and to embrace the reality. And if people are in chronic pain, how do they embrace that if they're in chronic pain?
I belong to a couple of Facebook groups, where there are people who express their chronic pain, and I feel for them greatly. But my response is almost always that forgive. Learn. And the other thing is, I have to tell you this. One of the first resources I used was Dr. Schuberner's Unlearn Your Pain. And I did all those wonderful exercises that are both writing and also shouting at people who are not there. But I got to the part where you write letters to people to forgive them, and I couldn't do it.
Wow.
I was it. And also, I should also say that the first time I read Dr. Hanscom's book, I read it fairly quickly, straight through, and I went past the forgiveness part, and I don't have anybody to forgive, and I went by. And then I reread his book more closely.
Wow.
And I said, oh, I think I do. I just hadn't been ready.
Wow.
I hadn't been ready because, and I think that what this book explains is it's not about the other person. Forgiveness is not about whoever or whatever wronged you. It's completely about finding peace within. And he developed this technique working with people from Northern Ireland who'd had their relatives murdered in the sectarian violence.
Wow.
And it helped them, the majority, arrive at inner peace. And,
Wow.
you know, I don't think any of us have more to deal with than that. Well, I could be wrong, but it's not about do they deserve forgiveness or atonement or speaking to them even. It's about taking responsibility for how you feel right now. And you can do that with breathing and with with gratitude and some visualizations and some simple steps, some other simple steps. Um, and and finally you get to a point where like I say, they don't deserve forgiveness or any of those things. You don't have to talk to them, but you can live with yourself and
Wow.
with whatever occurred.
Wow.
And I would like to say that to most of the people who are struggling with, and I do say that, with awful chronic pain, you know, take the next step, the final steps. And this is clear in Dr. Hanscom's books. After exploring the anger, after everything else, the final steps are forgiveness and play, and then engaging with joy in your own life. And and like I was previously, I wasn't ready to move on to those steps, but the sooner you become
So
ready to take them, the
but
sooner you get there.
getting ready is another, I would think, maybe you want to disagree or agree, but isn't getting ready having a relationship with your pain? And like, it's not about getting rid of it. It's somehow, and I know it sounds new age, and I say this to people, it's about having, you had a relationship with your pain, and the pain wasn't like pain go away, that there was no condition, like if you don't go away, like Gordon calls it, outcome
Yeah, right,
dependent. If you don't go away, I'm not, like, it's like if you go away, great. If not, I'm going on a run, or I'm going to be okay, or I'm going to do what I have to do, because I'm not expecting you to behave. And that, now we're back to what Luskin said. Like, I'm not expecting you to do what I want you to do.
right.
Whatever you do, I'm going to be okay. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, and there's a little experimentation early on when I had all that pain, and it was pre-Sarno. I found that if I walked for 30 minutes, I was walking, I was hobbling with the pain. But if I walked for 30 minutes, it released enough so that I could run for 30 seconds at a
Wow.
time. Or maybe even before that, if I walked with the cane for 30 minutes, then I could take 30 seconds and walk without the cane, and then use the cane for another 30 seconds, and then 30 seconds without the cane. And then after doing that a while, I would run those 30 seconds. And running didn't hurt. So after I'd done all that walking, the running didn't hurt. So I was willing to do all that painful stuff in order to get to the running part that I loved.
Wow.
And even when in the spring I decided I was going to start signing up for some races, because I used the cane to walk but not to run. I thought, well, maybe I'll see if I can't get from the water to the bike, I'll see if they let me use a cane.
Wow.
Damn it.
Breaking the rules.
That's right. But by that time, I didn't need it.
Wow.
Wow. And I should tell you what that awful pain in my hip that made me walk with a cane, that was worse with Dr. Sarno's method. I mean, worse with the extinction burst. What made that go away completely was getting COVID.
Love it.
I did. And Eddie Linden.
You're focused. You distracted yourself from
my body said, see, I don't, my brain said, I don't need to make any pain, any distraction. You've got this.
Okay. And then when COVID went away, then what happened?
Then I had some pain in my other hip. This is so TMS. The left hip was fine. So my brain said, oh, have a little right hip, have a little back, have a little allergic, stuff.
Wow. And it doesn't matter what happened, you were able to detach yourself and observe, which is a really good tool.
Yeah. But I know, I understand how back last fall, my parents' generation, women called it having a nervous breakdown. Women had nervous breakdowns, and they would go, to a mental hospital, their rest home or something. And I felt I had a complete nervous breakdown. I was so depressed and uninterested in anything. So I know how hard it is to see a way out of that. But for me, and I think for many people, and I know that the experts recommend this, a little physical activity. Take baby steps. If you can't walk without a cane, well, walk with a cane. I used to love to go to the grocery store, because pushing that shopping cart is really makes walking easy. Just take some baby steps and plan how to increase it, and
set some intentions of but like, I know some people that they do have a conditioned response, like they just have bad days, and I like the way Gordon says, and I've adapted this to my work. It's that it is a day. Like, even Pooh says to Piglet, it's just a day.
Yeah.
It's just a day. And I know it's hard because we like to label, because it somehow gives us a sense of, well, but I had a good day. Now it's a bad day, but it's a day. And I think it's not healthy to label. It's more like, it's a day, and I'm going to just, talk a little bit more about how you were able to get through some of the hard days. Besides the book and your little girl, what other things would you use that would really push you through a little bit in a healthy way?
I've already mentioned unlearn your pain, and I would do those exercises every day.
What would he suggest? Remind me of some of Scrivener's.
Some of them are what he calls the empty chair exercise, where you imagine somebody, you're sitting in a chair where nobody can hear you, and you start yelling at them. Yeah. And
like banging a pillow.
You bang, and I would take my cane, I would wallop the chair, And
Would you really do that?
I did. It was play acting. And I knew it was play acting. I didn't feel that anger inside when I started, but I said, "Oh, okay, I got to imagine my father or whatever in the chair and shout all this stuff, all the ways he wronged me and bang him and stuff." And with some people, I never felt the anger inside, but sometimes, it revealed to me who I had really had anger for, that I really felt it. And then, of course, he follows that with writing exercises. That because the thing about the anger is you don't want to repress it, you want to feel it, but then you need to detach from it, separate it from it.
Yes.
And
yes.
And so then he would have some writing exercises that that accomplished that. So that was something I used a great deal, and a little bit later, after I had done, and I also used Alan Gordon's TMS wiki every time before I went out on my painful walk. I would listen to the day's lesson, and then instead of thinking about how much pain I'm in or how angry I am at this situation or how frightened I am, I would think about that lesson for the day.
Wow.
And
you distracted yourself with.
Yeah. And also Dr. Schubiner has, for those who buy his book, they have access to his meditations online. And I got really hooked on one of them, Embracing Your Emotions, where he takes you on a journey, first to a real safe place, and then he invites you to feel a situation that is not so comfortable and to really feel that feeling. But then afterwards, he brings you back to the breathing and the safe place and so on. That and it's a very effective meditation that I would do every day.
You were an amazing student. You were an amazing student of this work. And did age make you wiser? Did age give you a little place to, be a little bit more patient? I mean, I'm not really sure what it was. It's such a personal journey, and yet you sound like you had the personality of a Sarno. You were a high achiever.
Yep.
It's like it's all or nothing.
Yep.
And but you're channeling that now to serve you, as I say.
I'm a good student. I don't. One thing that does not apply to me is I don't think I'm right all the time, or that I have nothing to learn from anything. And I was a motivated student, so I took full advantage of the resources that are available, and I would move on from one to the other. I don't look at Alan Gordon's wiki anymore. It's just as wonderful, but I moved on from that, largely to Schubiner and then to David Hanscom, his wonderful book Back in Control, which led me to this Forgive for Good.
And just by the way, it doesn't matter what kind of pain you have, these tools work. It's not about back in control.
Yeah.
It's about, it's really important that the symptoms just don't matter. It's really about this relationship that you developed with yourself. And can I ask you why you had to forgive you? What did you have to forgive yourself for? What did you do? Like, what, were you angry at yourself? Or it was just this trauma as a child that maybe you get?
Well, this thing of being a perfection. I mean, when you look at when I wrote down my unenforceable rules, thou shalt do everything perfectly all the time. It's just so silly. you have to forgive yourself for having that rule.
Yeah. And also, and know that you came from a place that made that rule. And again, it's a lot about acceptance, and it's hard to swallow some of these big acceptance things, because it really is. I think we can analyze it from here till the end of time. It's about you accepted that you had these self-limiting beliefs, and I think we can go into them and analyze them, and it's not easy to shift. You shifted your mindset.
The other thing is that I understood, when I was a little girl, I was a tomboy. I was called a tomboy. And that was not okay in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
And I was not, that aspect of me was not accepted by my mother, or, you know, I guess my schoolmates. And, um, and that made me feel unlovable,
Mhm.
and disconnected from myself. And only now, I think, and through this whole process, I've come to understand and affirm the fact that, that I'm not gender typical, and my appearance, uh, which I've often hated looking at myself in the mirror. I had to teach myself that, uh, not just that it's okay, but it's lovable.
Wow.
Um, and so it's not really a question of forgiving myself, but learning to accept who I really am, and to live in a world where that's still not quite okay, um, and and uh, and be forgiving of that while trying to change it.
Wow. You're really very insightful, and you know a lot. I mean, you know a lot, and you're able to express it. And I think you've taken the situation and really, you took lemons and made lemonade, really. And you're continuing to have an enormous harvest of incredible lemons. And I mean, you're going to be in a champion triathlon.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to be in the world championship age group. Fortunately, they allow people to be judged against their own age. So I'm get to go to Spain in September. And
Unbelievable.
yeah,
Spend all that money.
and
Spend all that money.
spend all that money, and have a
Wow.
good time. Yeah.
Wow.
And I've had to, as an athlete, um, I did have a focus on winning. I wanted to win.
Well, you said it earlier in the show. As a child, you weren't loved
Unless I achieved, unless I was the best, and I was the
so
best, valedictorian, all that.
so it's still happening now, but you can be that way. That's your personality, but you don't have to hurt yourself.
No, I've learned. No, I've figured it out that winning is something you can't control. It's an unenforceable rule that so and so who's faster than me will not show up at that race. That's an unenforceable rule. So, because I can't control who's going to that race, and I can't control who had the opportunity to be on the swim team as a youth. I can't control those things. What I can control is that I want to perform excellently, and I control that by my training.
Wow.
And so that's what. So this is a little bit of a mind switch.
But it serves you. It helps you, and you get to be in peace
Yes.
with yourself. Wow. Well, this has been going on for almost 3 years, this show, and I meet amazing people. I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful. And you're really just one more of those amazing souls that have crossed in my galaxy. And I get to like be part of this interesting story, which is not over yet. But I'm really, really blessed, and I'm so grateful that I found you, and then you responded, because not everybody responds to my emails. And you have a lot of very important um, insights, and everything you're talking about. Again, a lot of people don't respond to journaling. A lot of people don't respond to meditation, but for you, you found what works. You found your combination of what works.
Well, while we're in the gratitude department, I just want to be great. I can't imagine what my life would be like if I had never learned of TMS. And there are so many resources out there, including yourself, people who want to make this available to other people, to from the doctors who would make way more money doing the surgery than they would telling people to pick up a pen and paper.
And they're good at that. They listen, and some people get better from surgery and some people don't. And we're here for the people who don't.
I am profoundly grateful that my doctors and the surgeon that I saw last fall were honest people and did not say, "Oh, we can," because I would have had a hip replacement. If they'd said that, I would say, "Oh."
And you probably would have been fine anyway. How's that?
No, I probably would not have. It's like
You would have been, because it's your personality. You would have been fine. You would have found a way out.
Dr. Hanscom, in his wonderful, wonderful book, tells of people, because he's a surgeon. He's a back surgeon. But surgery doesn't work if you don't do the
That's why I mean, you would have had the surgery, but you're saying you might not have done the Sarno work. But anyway, either way.
I didn't know about it. I didn't know.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I think I hear what you're saying. And that's where people can get better with surgery. Please get better with surgery, or after surgery, come to Sarno, or during, after. You're right. And that's where, thank God, more and more doctors are understanding the mind-body connection and pointing you that way. And so I want everyone to know that's listening that if there's any questions, you can ask now. I'm going to wrap up, but that you're available on Facebook. You have a Facebook, Deborah Bliss.
It's with a B, spelled with a B, not a V.
Oh, wow. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's fine here. I love hearing the
Deborah Bliss. Yeah. And if anybody needs to reach you, they can contact me. I'm going to put this on. It's going to be on our Facebook page, and then it's going to be on the YouTube. And I'm just thrilled. And wait till Rose hears this, and you'll meet her again. You'll come back and visit us again after your world champ, especially if you win. But especially if you don't win, I want you to come back.
I will. If I get there, I win.
Yeah.
I mean, if you.
Yeah. How about that infographic that I put up? I'll put up again, where there's like a guy winning first place who's like a little boy's like, and then the second place winner's like, So I'm so happy to meet you, and I'm blessed to be. Rose and I are working together with clients and separately, virtually, and in our own offices. And if anyone needs to talk to us or have a conversation, we're available to help. And Deb, I think you'd make a great coach. You obviously are coaching yourself and many people, but you would make a great coach. So you got a career ahead of you.
I'm going to have to live forever.
Yeah, well, you're just too busy running. You're too busy running.
I would like to learn how. Well, I'm going to do a couple. Do you have a couple? We have a couple minutes?
Sure.
Okay. There's two things. I'm also doing this laughter university online.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's those endorphins.
Yes, and I want to I live in a small, very small conservative community, and I would like to bring this to the community, bring
Wow.
something to the community. And my first thought was, oh, I'd like to get trained in this forgiveness stuff. But A, I couldn't see where that coaching was available. And B, sometimes, certain groups of people think, oh, forgiveness, that's not for me.
Yeah.
But then I saw the laughter. I thought, oh, I could be a laughter coach. I could do a laughter workshop.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to laugh.
Yeah. It's important. It's
important. So I think I'm going to start there.
Beautiful. Well, keep us in touch. We'll definitely meet again.
Yeah.
So I'm saying good night to our listeners, and I'm saying God bless, and so happy that we met.
Yes.
And we'll be in touch, and just the best of luck in your race and for the next 30, 40 years.
Jeez.
Moses lived till 120.
Yeah.
Noah lived till 900 years. I like, just every day should be a gift. And thank you so much for blessing my virtual studio with your beautiful and profound wisdom and your healing. And may the healing continue.
Thank you.
Amazing. Okay,
thank you so much.
God bless and good night, everybody.
Good night.
Okay, 1 second. We're going to go off the air. 1 second. Don't go yet.